Hey everybody, I'm Yvonne Williams, Back to Earth Creations, and in this video I want to show y'all how I made this pendant. So let's get started. So to begin, we're going to start with our tools. I have flush cutters. These are stepped flat nose pliers from Rio Grande. Links for everything will be down in the video description below. Bent nose pliers, stepped mandrel pliers, and round nose pliers. I also have 28 and 16 gauge wire from parawire.com. This is a really high quality copper core, but they also have a really nice silver filled, which is much more affordable than just solid sterling silver, but you can oxidize it and it has the same look and feel and behaves very similarly. So they have really great products too. I use it in all of my wire wrapping. You could also use a 26 gauge or even an 18 gauge, but I really like the balance and feel of the thicknesses of these wire. So these are two examples. This piece here was made with a purchased component that I enameled with, Plaid has a product, their Mod Podge Indoor Outdoor. I really like that for just painting a light layer over all of my work, especially on the back sides to keep it from turning your skin green. And then here we have an example that was made with one of our laser cut pieces. Sorry, I've shifted the camera a bit to try to catch a slightly better angle. But so we're going to be going over how to make this style of frame and bail on our pendants. We'll try really hard to not disturb the kitty who is taking up residence in my lap on a heated blanket. And then here I'm going to show you super high tech because I can't figure out how to, well, I figured it out, but I hate video editing. So this is on my Instagram. I'm going to be showing you guys how to do this wire wrapped tree on the inside, both using, we could be using metal or like this example here, using one of our laser cut wooden frames to be able to get unique shapes and kind of again a contrast of texture and stuff. So I'm going to set this aside. Before I start rambling and everything, let's get 10 lengths, about 12 inches long, 10 to 12 inches long cut of our 28 gauge wire. And we're going to begin with, what did I do with it? Oh, and there goes the cat. She just sliding down my lap. I really like these welded steel rings that are enameled. That I think I got this one from Michael's, or you could make some of your own and just solder them out of copper or silver. But today I'm going to be using cat and dog furs, always free, one of our laser cut designs. That this one in particular is actually going out at the time of recording in next month's craft along kits and up on our Etsy shop and stuff, but depending on where you are in time when you're watching this, we do have the SVG files for this design that I made in Inkscape for you to be able to use with a laser cutter or with a Cricut, or even you could, hopefully we'll still have them for sale, so be sure to check out our Etsy shop for these. So I'm gonna be just peeling it off here. I like to use the masking tape that these cutouts come on to keep all these little wooden bits from getting lost, and I still have a tendency to lose them. But for this piece I'm going to be using this cutout, which I have an example here of just putting some resin. I stick it onto some fresh masking tape, that way the tack is very, at its strongest, and just use a two-part epoxy. I really like the Brilliant resin from Little Windows, but also you can use Art and Glow is a really good one. I actually have the Art and Glow pigments in here, so it glows in the dark. But you could fill them in, but for this one I'm going to leave it empty. And just examples of different things that you could do with this frame Here I had set it onto fresh masking tape and then set all our little odd wooden pieces in, and then filled in around that with more of that same batch of resin. And I really liked how that came out. And you could wire wrap this, you could drill little holes up on each side. We'll do future tutorials on this one if you guys are interested in that. And then I've also made with the little wooden rings and stuff. Like the possibilities are endless, especially whenever you start incorporating a resin or polymer clay or different wire wrapping, or just, I'm really excited to see what you guys come up with for these frames. Which, by the way, stay tuned until the end of the tutorial to see some of the work of our very generous and talented patrons, so that maybe you can be inspired by their work as well. So, but yeah, just using these two components, and the techniques and everything are the same even if you're using just a metal ring or or a pre-made component. So that being said, let's go ahead and get started. I actually ended up cutting 12 lengths. I do recommend at least 10, even for a smaller piece like this, because you can always kind of decide to weed out a few extra wires, but the larger your piece, the more wires I do recommend. Also, for what I'm doing, cutting 12-inch long segments, we're going to have a lot of extra. So again, just size it kind of accordingly. 12 inches even for a piece this big, which is about 1.5 inches in diameter. 12 inches, I still had about this much to trim off on each side. I think that's a fair amount for, being able to still have something to grip to, and to just, a pair of wires affordable enough that I don't feel like I'm breaking the bank by trimming off, 1 inch or 2 of extra from each tip of the tree branches. So I'm just getting them all bunched together like this, all the wires, and I want to find roughly the middle. And now I'm going to bring this through. It's kind of difficult sometimes to get all of the ends bunched together, but it can get fiddly. Don't hesitate to tape with some masking tape if it's getting really fiddly. And now I'm just coming around, not being particular at all about making sure that the wires aren't crossing or anything like that. You could. It's your pendant. You do what makes you happy. So, but I like kind of a little bit of a wild, messy look. And so I've only done one full wraparound with the wires coming back up this way. And now I'm going to kind of off to the back side, twist these together. So 1, 2. Yeah, this is going to be a very leafy tree for, I'm actually just coming down and rocking my my roots to keep them flat to the side of the laser cut stuff. The nature of it is to be very squared off. You could come through and file it, and I don't have to worry about doing that at all whenever I use a wire piece, but I like to smush it kind of flat to the side. But yeah, this one's going to be very, very leafy, so I want to leave myself a good 2/3 of the space of my frame to do branch work. So we're going to start going, we did 12, so 12 folded in half is 24, and I'd like to do 5 branches would have been nice, but let's do 6, so then we can do 4 in each little segment. So I'm just counting out 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. And on these ones I am kind of trying to grab them from side by side where they're coming up off of the trunk. Maybe if we zoom in, this might be helpful. I'm going to try my best to stay into frame, but I am only human, so bear with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. But yeah, as an example, I think it gives a much tidier look to grab the wires from side by side, as opposed to having, you know, one wire come from down here. Oof, my fingers just aren't working the way I want them to today. And, you know, really, that's not the end of the world. But sometimes stuff will get crossed weird and it looks funny, so keep an eye out for that. So I am going to have this split into 3 first. So we're going to have like the side branch, and the top branch. And you could be however specific or whatnot as you like. So I'm just going to do, let's do 1, 2 twists of each segment. So I'm coming in and there's 1, 2. I actually think I'm going to do a third on this one just to bring it up a little higher. And 1, 2. I also do enjoy twisting the same direction on all of my wires. I don't know if that's personal taste, but experiment for yourself and see what you like. And now also, so I make sure, there you go, wandering out of frame, to make sure that I don't skip anything, I do like to kind of start on one side of the tree and work my way around. But sometimes I find that gets me stuck into a rut of like patterning. I don't know. So again, try it every single different which way. And I'm just coming through doing 2 twists on each segment and then kind of pulling the branches off. I like to get them divided to get a solid twist. And then 1, 2. Oh, I think I'm gonna do that one for a third time. Follow your heart. Then 1. My eyesight's not quite what it used to be either, so I'm actually trying to use the camera as a magnifier so I can see what's happening. But then that throws off my eye-hand coordination. 1, 2. Modern problems require modern solutions. And splitting these off again. And 1, 2. And so now you can kind of see a little bit of branching taking shape. Nothing like life-changing just yet, but we'll get there. Getting all this stuff separated. Now also, I'm thinking I may have liked to have branched off instead of having it all split from here. If I had just branched off one segment and then another segment, and then let's see if we can't do that. And just had another set of branching coming off just a little bit higher on our center trunk. So to do that, I've just undone the twist on those 2, and now I'm just gonna add a twist up here. Yeah, I like that. It kind of spaces things out a little bit more, fills in that empty spot, which again, use your own discretion to decide for yourself what you're gonna like. And sometimes you don't know what you're gonna like until you've tried it and you're like, oh no. Or oh yeah. But yeah, I don't necessarily recommend doing this when you've first woken up and you haven't done anything to wake up your dexterity for the day, because I feel like I'm having a hard time grabbing all the wires. But that's just me. It's also cold hands in a cold house, so okay. So now I do enjoy weaving with the tree growing kind of on the front of my frame. It's very normal on the laser cut pieces that you'll get from us to have a little bit of patterning and stuff on the back and a little bit of burn shading on the front. We could avoid that by using masking tape, but I personally really like that effect. And I hate masking tape. So I don't like hate it, but it just, I hate having to peel it up off of everything. So yeah. Now also you could paint or stain or dye or use colored pencils or pastels, or you could tint this to suit however you like. You could use a little bit of mica powder to make it pearlescent looking or make it look like silver, so long as you seal it with something, because those powders will rub off. Okay, so now instead of starting at one side, I'm going to start in the top center. So again, I think I'm going to, let's consider our options here. We could branch off like that, and now take these two and 1, 2, get that nice and tight, and then I'm going to undo one of them. There we go. And so now from here I'm coming through, if you can see, normally I'd be doing my wrapping on the outside, like if this is the center, but for these first two I do like to keep them separate from each other, make a little bit of space by doing, let's do 3 or 4 rotations around our frame. Just here on the inside, and that'll make a nice little bit of space. I think I'm just going to do 3. Now, bending around. But yeah, I do prefer to have just a little bit more wire than what I think I would need, than to end up not having enough. And I do not snip my wires yet, because there's going to be a step where we're using our pliers to twist and modify, like kind of shape the branches of the tree. And I like to have a little bit of wire hanging off the ends here, or a lot, doesn't matter, to give us some wiggle room to make sure that I don't like slip a branch off. Hopefully that'll make more sense as we get there. So now I've done those two. I guess maybe I'll just keep doing it on that side to make space. So there's one, and we're just coming around, making sure that our wires don't get crossed in the process. And I'm pulling with quite a bit of force, but on some of our wooden frames, be a little gentle. It is an organic material. Some pieces might be stronger or weaker than others, but just listen to the wood and kind of feel, you'll feel in your hands if it's starting to get stressed or under too much tension. Okay, so now I'm going to come in and twist these guys. Bonk, bonk, just making a little bit more of a solid branch. And from here, I'm going to start, you can see I've kind of got it lined up with the edge there. I'm going to start threading through on this side. And you could be however consistent or inconsistent, or however you want to be, do that and see how that works out for you. Because again, this is just my way of doing things. This is just one of many ways that I do things, actually. I'm always trying something new and different, and even if it's something that I think's out of my comfort zone, or it's like, you know, I really don't like that, I'll still try it anyways, just to, because you never know. Something that I really didn't enjoy 3 or 4 years ago as a crafter might be just what I need right now. So now I'm going to continue just doing this all the way around. This is the time, crafters, to pull up your Netflix, pull up your, you know, whatever you're binge watching on YouTube or whatever streaming service, pull up something and let the time fly by as you get into the groove of this. I'll normally, whenever I'm in production mode, get a bunch of trees. I'll get like 10 trees started where I have the roots and the branching, and then I'll be to like this step, and then I'll sit down up in the living room and just do some wire wrapping, because all it takes is one pair of pliers in your hands, and it's just kind of getting that step done. And then you know, before you know it, you'll have 10 trees all branched and ready to go. So I'm going to put this into a time lapse that I may or may not include in the video, because I feel like this is going to be a pretty long video, but sometimes these projects just take a while, and that's okay, and that's normal. It's I've said it before and I will keep saying it, I am not a 5-minute craft channel. This stuff just takes time, and I am a lollygagger who chit chats too much. So I'm gonna put it in a time lapse, and I'll see you all here when we get back. So that took around 15 minutes of just one wire at a time going through. I had one wire break on me. Where'd it go? After like 2 rotations, and that bummed me out, but it's okay. Hey, puppy. Yeah, right there. I had one of the wires break on me. Fortunately, it was after 2 rotations, and I'm like, okay, I can tolerate that, as opposed to it being after just 1, in which case I'd have been like, ooh, because I don't really see that holding on very well, if we have just the 1 wraparound. So now the next step, you would think, would be trimming these, but before we do that, I'd like to come through with my round nose pliers, and I'm actually going to use my super petite tips. Both of these will be linked down below, but you can see the difference in tip size makes a big difference. Oh, there goes the kitty. I traded out one cat in my lap for another. And I like to start with the trunk, and so I'm just going to come in here and give it just some tweaks one way or another. You can make it however gnarled or straight as you like. I just like to add a little bit of character to it, especially at these branches that are further up to the tips, close to the frame. Unless you're doing a very specific tree species, I kind of just do whatever I feel like. But if you're doing like a birch or a maple or an oak or a yew, or you look into it, and some trees actually have very distinct forms. Like a Bradford pear tree would have all of the branches kind of coming up and out this way. They don't get a whole lot of horizontal branching. So give it a Google, or go outside and be like, hey, I like this tree, I'm gonna make this tree. And just start crafting. But I do like to come in and focus just on one cluster of branches at a time. Just coming in, tweak, tweak, tweak. But yeah, the fine tipped nose, I just really like them for doing this. I'm just gonna keep bending, twisting, and I'm not doing anything like super extreme, but again, you could add spirals, you could make the tree as realistic or as fantastical as you would like. So that's how that has come out. Now I'm going to start on one side and focus one wire at a time. I like to give it a bend down and then lift it just a bit, and I'm going to come in and snip, and then come in with our bent nose pliers and smush, because I really want to get that embedded down into the wood. Now, on some pieces, in the past, I'd gone through and just like snipped everything all at once, and I just feel like I'm not getting as good of a smush on individual pieces as what I do whenever, I come through and do it just one at a time. So it takes up a little bit more time, but I feel like that's worth it. And I like to snip, especially on these frames, a little more in the middle. We can actually do, these two are brothers, they're side by side, so we'll go ahead and snip them together because I'm not going to lose my place. But I don't want any pokey bits coming around on the back side. Like this one actually ended up being just a little long, so I just lifted him back up. And I'm going to snip it just a bit shorter, but this is going to be presumably coming into contact with skin or a knitted shirt or anything like that. So the less little snaggy bits that we have, the better. And they'll be hidden by and locked down by our outer frame that we're going to be doing. You can see these were both cut from 3mm birch, so they're the same thickness, and you can see how nice and thick that 16 gauge wire is on the side. And so we're just coming through. These two are just very comfortably side by side right next to each other, so I'm going to do them at the same time. Snip, set the wire down, and try without losing your place to just give it a good smush. And we'll do this again over here. So you don't have to, I do recommend starting off one at a time, but as soon as you're comfortable with that, I think 2x2 is perfectly fine whenever they're right next to each other. But just the being attentive and mindful, that's always going to come across in your work. Your like quality is effort's never wasted when it's on quality. Because it's those kinds of things, especially if you're new or, you know, just struggling through some things as we do as artists and artisans. The attention to detail, even if nobody else ever sees it, you see it and you were there for it. And it's going to build from within a, I hesitate to say pride because pride can have such negative connotations, but a healthy pride in your work, a very realistic, no, yeah, I did that. I did my best. And just a solid confidence. Whoop, slipped. Which confidence can breed arrogance, but, you know, I think we can try our best to be self-aware and always double, triple check your work. And I hear a chicken squawking out in the backyard. I think she's excited to have laid an egg. Or the neighbor's cat has gotten into the yard and is terrorizing them again. One or the other. We're just going to keep going around. But yeah, if ever I start to feel like I'm getting a chip on my shoulder or being a little too proud of my work, I just get on Instagram and look at how amazing everybody else's work is, and I'm like, oh yeah, I have so much more to learn and to do and to experiment and to refine. And you know, and I get inspired too. Like I feel like I'm more creative whenever I'm being humble and, you know, almost more critical of my work. Like I don't know, there's a fine line of balance between just the criticism and self-loathing of this wasn't good enough and I need to do better, and the inspiration of, wow, that's amazing, I want to do that. So it's, I don't know, and it's different for everyone too. So I'm just going to keep going around, snip and smush. And there we are. But it's the best tip that I can give is if you're being critical of your work, like if you feel like, if I sit here and look at this and I'm like, this isn't good enough, I'm like, okay, why? You know, it's holding together, it didn't fall, when you know, it didn't break whenever I dropped it, it fell, hopefully it'll fall if gravity stops working. I think we're gonna have bigger problems than whether or not I'm happy with my work. But to refine it, it's like, I don't like how the outside edge here isn't as meticulously perfect as I would have liked, because some things are smushed and some things are not. So it's like, okay, well, let's work on that then. Like, pinpoint what it is, write it down even, if that's helpful to you, because sometimes the same 3 things can just grind a rut into your mind. You know, they're going around and around until they've ground themselves in. And then if you write them down and then address them individually, it's like, well, what didn't I like about it? Well, it's not symmetrical enough. It's like, okay, well, now we have that thing that we can address and refine, or take it as a moment or an opportunity to embrace. Maybe this piece just won't be symmetrical, and that's okay. You know, it's one of hopefully thousands of pieces that you'll be making. So make it and then set it free. But yeah, so I'm just taking this and giving it a good little smush roll on the table, and that's fixing up that irregularity for me. Always double, triple check to make sure the smushed bits stay smushed. And there we have our little tree. I actually really like that. Now we could stop here, we could put a ring and a bail on it, but I want to be a little extra today. So let's see how this fits. Still is fitting pretty nicely into our crescent moon. Like how we have, I'm gonna have a sip of tea. Oh, that's good stuff. Okay, perfect drinking temperature. And all these little bits of scrap here, I actually save because I'm a hoarder, and knowing is half the battle. But I'm just gonna crunch all these up into, you could use them as binding wire to hold other pieces in place. I actually am saving up all of my even enameled copper to smelt down into ingots to use in my electroforming setup. So that's why I save all of these. It's because and whenever I finally get enough and finally get a crucible and kind of get brave enough to try that, I will be doing a video showing how I melt down and reclaim the copper from my wire wrapping. So now we're coming through with the 16 gauge. Let's zoom back out for a minute. And I'm going to pull off, 14 inches, and I'm going to cut 2 lengths of this. Also, pro tip, if you want to be able to get some really cool effects, like with the sterling silver and stuff, I would, for this piece, I would recommend, but you want to keep the price down, use the 26 or 28 gauge in fine or sterling silver, and then use a silver filled, or even like this is silver plated copper that's then been tinted, because so much of this right here is going to be covered that it's more of a structural component. So I feel like it's not necessarily cutting corners. I feel like it's, you know, I try to always be transparent whenever I post this piece up for sale. I will, you know, I won't say, oh, it's made from pure silver. You know, I'd be like, if I were using sterling for the finer details, I'd say, you know, it's a hybrid piece between, you know, enameled copper and silver filled, or silver filled and sterling. Just to keeping your customers informed, I feel like, is the important part. But I think an informed customer who was able to get a piece for half as much is going to be much happier than you know, somebody who's like, why was this so inexpensive? Like, you know. So just yeah. No, I'm gonna be pulling, where'd my, there it is, 28 gauge wire, and I'm gonna be pulling off 2 full arm spans. Now I'm about 5'4", so let's say 10 feet of wire, and I'm giving it a snip. Oh, there's a kitty here to play with my wire. Ember loves playing with wire. So, oops, and I'm gonna rack into the tripod and do a full arm span. Real life wire wrapping problems. I'm actually actively antagonizing her now. But this is, if this isn't a testament to how well the Parawire holds up, it's even cat proof, you guys. It's even cat proof. So I found the center of my wire and saved it from the cat. And now we have our 2 lengths of 16 gauge wire, both cut to around 14 inches. And I'm going to come in here and just do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now, that's 10 coils around the core. On each of these, I did 5 or 6 coils in between, and it got like I like that regular spacing. So yeah, I really liked that. But on this one, I went a little bit wider of a spacing, which is why I went with the 10 repetitions. And so now I'm going to pull this down towards to where we're in the middle of our wire. And then I'm going to bring this in and do 2 rotations around both. So there's 1, oops, sorry, I didn't mean to bump the tripod, and 2 rotations around both. And then I'm going to do 10 rotations around the 1. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm actually going to stop at the 4 because I'll show you. You can see on these guys here, I was doing 6 rotations in between each. So on the ones where I wrap around both, and then I did 2 rotations around 1, 2 rotations around the focal point as well as the wire, 2 rotations around just the wire, and then 2 rotations around both. And then I resumed our normal patterning until it got to a connection point again. Same thing kind of over here on this one, though on this one I kind of just spliced in where I could. And so modify how you're doing your connections based on what your centerpiece is, but my best tip is to just be consistent about it. Like this one, you can see I had started with them being, 5 repetitions, so 2 around both, 5 around 1, 2 around both, 2 around 1, 1 around the whole center point, then 2, then 2, then 5, 2, 5, 2. Kind of just, so as long as you're consistent and be like, oh yeah, I meant to do that, it really helps the piece to be a little bit more congruous. Just, and people aren't going to see it and be like, wow, that's just a Mod Podge of whatever you felt like doing, unless that's what you wanted, was a Mod Podge of whatever you felt like doing, in which case do that. So I'm going to come in. Now also on this piece, I pre-shaped the wires to be round, and on this one, I kind of bent them down and in as we went, and I think I preferred them being pre-shaped. So let me see if I can't find something round. I'm going to use this bottle cap. So just find something that's roughly the same diameter as what you're using. Doesn't have to be, but it can be helpful. I'm going to get these wires out of the way, and I'm just going to shape this one first, the innermost wire. You can kind of see, and I'm just bringing the sides up. Just bringing that up and around. And then while we're here, before we get, I probably should have done this before we started our weaving. And I'm just doing it just the same with the other one. I'm not worried about keeping them stacked or anything. And now we can set that off to the side. But it got that initial curve going. Pulling one side of the wire just off to the side so it's a little bit more out of the way. And so now we can open this up some. And it just keeps little random bends from happening as much. Like, this isn't as perfectly curved as I would have liked, but meh. We'll wing it and see how it goes. So we did right here now, where we are, is where our centermost point is going to be. So setting that down, picking up our wooden piece, and bringing our wire through the center. And then we're coming up. You can see that's hugging pretty well. You can actually open this up just a little bit more. Straighten it out just a bit. That way we can bring it down fresh to the curve of our wood component. So again, don't be afraid to correct or reposition. Yeah, I like that much better. Okay, so now I'm going to wrap this Oops, getting all sorts of tangled up. There we go. So there's one. And then instead of finding the tip, I just do a little bit of a bend, push it through, and then come all the way around. And then there is our second. Being mindful to not get snagged on all the other wires. That can be kind of the hard part sometimes. It's not a race. Be patient with yourself. Don't be afraid to set it down and come back to it later. Also, just a little tip, if your wires are getting all kinds of crossed down here at the bottom, come up to your main piece and just do a little bend in opposite directions, very slight. But now look at how much space that gave me between the wires that I'm weaving around and the ones that I can just ignore for now. So do yourself as many little favors like that as you can to make your life a little easier. So we did 4 and then 2, so we're doing another 1, 2, 3, 4. If my public education serves me, that should be 10. And now I'm going to do 2 around 2 around both of our base wires. There's 1 and 2. And I like to give everything good smushes to kind of keep it in place and going where it needs to be, because I'd rather deal with it now than, you know, a couple of centimeters from now whenever it's like, oh man, that was a mess. So we're doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and I just bring around and then I press down. So what number? 8. Sure. 9, 10. Another pro tip is, if you're like me and going increasingly blind, you can zoom in and now we can count 1, 2, 3. I'm actually going to use the tip of my wire as a pointer, and I'm just using the camera as a magnifying. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Yep, cool. That makes me so happy to be able to do that. Not quite microscope, but it helps. So now we're going to do the 2 rotations. I'm actually going to zoom back in for you guys just to try to be helpful. I'm going to scooch that out of the way so hopefully the camera will focus. So there's 2 around 1, and there's 2 around 2, and smush. Now the main thing here is you want to make sure that you're not crossing your wire back over where you would come from, unless you're doing it and you're being consistent and it's intentional. But for this weave right now, I want them stacked very tidy side by side to each other. But that's just me. So now we're going to do another 10. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And it also right here, this is why I usually recommend to folks to get your foundation techniques of coiling, because you can't always use a thingamajig or a drill or spin it over your head. Sometimes you're just gonna have to do every single coil like full attention, and that's okay. I like how mind consuming some of these projects can be. So now I'm going to do that again, because we need to work our way all the way around, and I'm not going to be doing this in such excruciating detail the whole pendant. I'm going to get you to here and show you how we do that attachment point, and then I'm going to put it into hyper time lapse, that can condense like 15 minutes of work down into 2 minutes. So hopefully that'll be helpful to you guys. But I wanted to make sure I'm going into extreme detail now. That way, 5, you know, y'all be able to kind of carry on. And I've lost count again because I was counting and I was talking. So let's see. I can't count. Where my thing at? There it is. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's either 10 or 11. I'm gonna zoom in. There we go. So we have, yeah, there's one there. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, that was 11. Okay, so I'm gonna take one off just by pulling it out. I like to get in there with my thumbnail and straighten it just a bit. And then I'm going to go 1 and 2. And now let's do 4. I'm going to stay zoomed like this. It's going to be kind of difficult, but I think it'll be worth it. There's 2. There's 3. I really need to get better at doing my nails. There's 4, but I had painted them and then haven't really cleaned up the edges yet. There's 5. Oh wait, are we doing that? What are we doing? Because you can see there, if we do 10, they're that far apart, so it's going to be like right there. So we're not going to be able to have it be exactly the same how it is here in the middle, but that's fine, because however we do it on this side, we can just be sure to replicate on the other side, and then it'll be like we did it on purpose. What number was that? So that's 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then we're going to go 1 and 2. And let's see, because if we smush this well enough, we may be able to, yeah, we can do it like how we did on the other one. Just getting all of that nice and condensed. Okay, so now we're going 1, 2, 3, 4. And now I'm just going to do a little bend and push through. Oops, back into the tripod. Grab it and just pull on through. I like doing that because it helps get it, like, I don't kink my wire as much when I do that. And then I'm going to go, there's once. Doing just that little bit of a bend on my fingernail, like my fingertip, just enough to feed it through, and then grab and pull through. So there's 2. And so now we'll do 4 more rotations around just the one. So there's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then 2 around both. Ouch! Sorry, I don't mean to keep it in the tripod. 1, 2. And so now we will repeat this same structuring concept up to about here, actually probably in line with the point of the crescent on both sides. And I'm going to do that in time lapse. I'm going to try my best to get good angles and stuff. And if you guys have any questions or anything, be sure to leave those down in the comments and I'll get back to you. Also, we can help you out in our Discord as well as on Patreon. If you're one of our supporters or followers over there, I can post behind the scenes, like specific like footage and stuff over there as well. So be sure to check that out. Let's get a fresh cup of tea and let's get to weaving. So we've come around and I was able to maintain our patterning until we got to the last hole on each side, and then I just did the 2 around both, 1 around one, then 2 around there, and then resumed with 7, then 2, then 10, then 2, then 10, then 2, then 10. And now you could very easily just bind this off, make some loops, and have this be your focal point, and like chain connecting to each side here and here, or any other variety of ideas. I'm going to try to have this tree just floating a little bit. Let's come in. I actually have a little canister that's roughly the same size. You could also use a ring mandrel, but I'm gonna hold it right here and try to shape these guys around so that they're gonna fit against our component. And that looks pretty weird. I don't know if that's gonna work out. Yeah, that's way too far bent around. Sounds like the neighbors are building something. I don't know if the camera's going to pick up on that noise. There's a circular saw going in the background. So if you hear something weird, that's what that is. So I've reshaped. And I just want to join, like, just like how this is attached along the bottom, I want our tree to be attached at the top with some nice, like, negative space in between there. So it looks like I'm going to bend this off to the side just to keep it out of the way. Smush. Do 2 rotations around both. Like I'm going to do 1 more pattern repetition. So that's 2 around both and then 10. So let's see, about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Give it a smush. Place test. Yeah, I think that's gonna do us. Okay, so we're gonna do 2 around both. And now we're going to be doing like one of these patterns, repetition. So we're going to go 1, whoops, 2, super terrible, 3, 4, and now we get to very carefully decide where this is going to string through the branches. And it's upside down. So, because I do want to keep everything all centered. So before we do that, I'm going to actually just here on the other side, get it up to speed. So there's 1 and 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. Give it a smush. 2 around both. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. So now we can compare that symmetry. Actually getting our wire brought around as though we were feeding it from the front, getting everything kind of nice and flat. So it looks like here and here. So I'm going to start on this side And I'm just going to feed through almost loosely, just one rotation, enough that if it is not correctly positioned, it's very easy for us to just get in there and change it. Okay. This is coming off almost the wrong angle. Okay, so I'm making it open up on the back side, like almost undoing half of that rotation. That way I can actually feed the wire through where I want it to go, right here, without making a kink in the wire. So you can kind of see now how that just settles right on and in. And I think that's looking nice, so I'm going to wrap around and go through a second time. Now here we don't have to be as particular about the wire going directly next to the one that was just positioned because it's so mixed up in with the tree wires that we just don't have to worry about it. Okay, so there's 1, 2, and then 1. Having a hard time getting them to scooch down all the way, so I'm just opening that up. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Then we can just relax it back down. So there's one side. Let's do the other. Really trying to just baby step simultaneously on each side. So bringing this around. Now it is right here. Let's zoom in a bit. That I don't want the wires crossing back here where they're going to be highly visible on the wire base. It's in here that I'm not too worried about where they place. Now I do like to see them nestle down next to each other. So that was 1 and 2. Opening that up just a bit so that we can fit our wire in. Then maybe a hair more, because I like it snug. 2, 3, 4. Cool beans. And now right now this tree has way too much Wibblewobble. So we will help stabilize that by repeating our motif as we go across the top here. So I'm going to bend this one just a little bit out of the way. And then I'm going to do 1, 2 around both. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now bringing it like the first half of the next one. I'm going to go in through here. So there's 1. Bringing it around, coming through again. There's 2. So now we're going to be hitting that 1, 2, 3, 4. And I do feel like that was a little more spacious than maybe I wanted, but it's turning out to be just fine. And already there's still Wibblewobble, but not quite as much as what there had been. And I'm going to repeat this one more time, I think. So that's 2 around both. 1, 2, 4 around 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. Bringing it up, coming around Ooh, where do I want to feed this one through at? I think in between those two branches will be just fine. And coming on up and through, feeding through there. Feeding up and through. Yeah, okay. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, smush, then 1, 2. And we're going to leave this right here until we've come around through to the other side. And then from there, whether you're doing this style or whether you're doing something like this, the bail is the same, like kind of the same formula. So I'm just coming around. Really like how that's looking though. That makes me pretty happy. And we can actually, if we want it centered up a little bit more, we can just move the trunk over. So it gave us some wiggle room there. That's nice. 1, 2. And in today's episode of Craft Along with Vaughn, we get to count to 10 over and over and over again. 3, 4, 5. How many ways can we mess up counting to 10? Stay tuned to find out. Okay, so we're coming through, making sure we're not snagging any other wires. Come through, feeding up through the back. Then 1, 2, 3, 4. And I like it how it's kind of egg-shaped. I don't know. I didn't anticipate that. I was hoping for something a little bit more perfectly circular, but I kind of really like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're ever checking your symmetry, just find your last definite symmetrical point and count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 is what we're at. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Cool, so that's just a nice way to check in and let us know how it's going. Feeding through between those branches. I know this doesn't have anything to do with anything, but I've been doing a lot of research about mounted archery, and I'm getting super excited about it because at the time of recording, Randy and I are about to celebrate our 15-year anniversary, and his present to me is horseback riding lessons. And I'm super duper crazy excited about that. And it's going to be really nice to kind of get back into archery and just, I don't know, like I'm excited to see where the next 15 years of us supporting each other in our dreams is going to take us. So 2, 3. Yeah, nope, that was 2. This is 3, and that's 4. And so 1 and 2. So now we're at the same point on each side. Really sorry if I wandered out of frame on that. And I'm going to just take this and bend up. Yeah, bend up. There we go. And we can smush to try to keep these sides looking like they're the same. We do have an option here, like on this piece, you can see I added a little Swarovski crystal element in between the two. I don't think I'm going to do that on this one, but the option is always there. And I'm just bringing these guys. So yeah, again, regardless of how we did the frame, if you're using 4 base wires or 2 base wires that become 4 up here for the bail, this is a way that I really like to do the bail. So I'm just getting that twist started. And before we get too far, I'm actually going to do 5 rotations. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to stabilize this on each side. So here we come. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And if you don't want as much wiggle there on your tree, you could actually connect with wire or beads to the moon, but I think this will be just fine. And if not, I'll let you guys know, and you'll know to do yours differently. That's the great part about this, is if something about what I made, you're like, I want to do it that way, then do it your way. Like, that's, please. So just twisting, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm trying to grab in the same spot each time to maintain the same tension. I've lost count. There, we're just gonna keep going for days. Go until your hands hurt or you run out of wire, whichever happens first. So this isn't perfect. You can see there's a little bit, my tension got a little bit off up here, but that's far enough back. I think it'll be fine. So now from here, we're going to keep that like that, and we're going to spin this over our head or do however we like to get it to be coiled the way that we want it to be. So I'm actually going to bend this off. I'm going to bend these up, grab this here, and just go. I'm going to zoom back out so that you can see kind of what it is that I'm doing. And you can see it's doing a little wider than I wanted, so I just smoosh it down and then cinch. Because as I get further out from our join, that will become a little tighter. And so this becomes a little bit of a handheld coiling gizmo. Just coiling that on down. There we go. And smush. And get to our loose end and cinch down. And now let's do that same thing on the other side. I'm going to bring this up. I'm going to bring this down, because I want the rest of our wire wrapping piece to be out of the way. And just doing a few to try to get it. There we go. And keep spinning. And I'm holding quite firmly, and this is guiding the wire into place, and I can actually feel with my fingers more than what I could see that the wire is not crossing over. You can see it's a little hard on my fingers, but that's okay. It's wire wrapping. Nobody does this because it feels good on our hands, I don't think. If you're one of the lucky few that you're like, oh yeah, it's like yoga for my hands, leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear about your experience. Okay. So these are not perfectly symmetrical, so I'm actually, while they're in this position, I'm just going to separate our wire right there like that, and then come in with our wire snips that are quite dull on the tip. Sharper would be nicer. And now I'm just going to come around and tidy up that rough end. There we go. So now those are roughly the same size. And we can use our stepped pliers, or we could use a mechanical pencil, or just whatever we have on hand. A knitting needle would work fantastically. And I'm going to start with this centerpiece. I have it a little bent forward, which I like. And I'm just bending that around our pen or pencil. And I'm going to come in and snip right there. Put that into our scrap bin. Miss twice and give up. And now I'm going to grab with my round nose pliers, kind of close to the tip. I am just going to grab and fold this around, because I do not want those pointy bits coming into contact with our skin or snagging anything, but we can kind of hide them up inside the bail like this. And this is a heavy enough gauge that we're not going to have to worry about our necklace coming unbent. You could file those down if you were worried about it. I am not. But again, if this isn't secure enough for you, solder it, wire wrap it, do, something else. You could also use some of the 26 or 28 gauge wire to do a little bit of a join right there. But I've found that, you're really going to have to tug on that to get this ring part to open up. And so now from here, I'm going to bend forward and forward. And if you want the mandrel to be, or the bail to be like this, you would use the same thickness mandrel all the way through. If you want it to be like this, you can use a large mandrel for, like, let's say a 10mm for the twisted part, and then an 8mm for on the sides. So to do that, I actually like to use the tip of my mechanical pencil to come around. And on these ones, I just snipped and then tucked the end. I realize a lot of folks might not be pleased with that. So an alternative would be, if you don't have a gem in the center, to come on through this middle right here. And then we can just bring that on down. And then with our mandrel still in place, I like to bend this up and around off to the side. And that way it's very secure. Now we're going to come around. You can see this is kind of hard on your mechanical pencil, so a knitting needle might actually be a little better, or the end of a paintbrush. Though I like to stay consistent, so we could also just find out, this looks like a 6mm. Yeah, would fit. So I'm just going to come around on here with the 6mm section of my bail pliers and just use that to come around. So also I'm going to remove my pliers so that I can get a clear shot of through right there, and then put my pliers back in, and then grip with these pliers and just start tugging. Just pull it on through. And then we're just going to bend this around to the back, same as before. And you can see that tightened that down pretty nicely. If we need to cinch the other side down, I just open that up and then cinch that down as well. We could also get in here and pull that up a bit, being real careful. We don't want to like mar anything. So coming around. I think I'm going to do 2 little spirals just on the back side, because why not? It's been a minute since I did a spiral in this piece. So I'm going to snip there and kind of come off to the other side and snip there. So now I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers as close to the tip of the wire and as close to the tip of the wires as I can, or pliers. And just start making some little secret spirals on the back side here. And you could put these fairly well on the front as well. And also this piece could just be reversible. Everything is reversible if you put it on backwards. So, true story. So just coming around. Oops. Just jumped out of my hand there. And then we can come in and grip and cinch that little spiral in. And there we have the going to separate the bail out just a little bit more. This isn't exactly symmetrical to the other side either, but I think we're just going to have to deal. So I'm just getting in here and kind of positioning that just a bit. I'm going to grip it and then smush that down. Cool. Okay, that'll do. But yeah, just do some tweaking and get it however you like. It's a little hunched on the shoulder here for my taste, but I think I like it okay. We can come through now and smush. I don't recommend smushing on the wood because metal is stronger than wood typically, and it will cut into the wood. But just to tighten things up, just to snug there on the sides, kind of go on top of your spirals and stuff. But yeah, I think that's a pretty neat little thing. The shoulders, again, a little messy for what I would like, but that is okay. Hey y'all, thank you so much for joining me for this video. I really hope that it was helpful to you. If you have any questions, comments, or ideas, please leave those in the comments down below. I really love hearing from you guys. I wanted to take a moment to thank our patrons. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do what we do and provide these free tutorials for everyone to use. So as a way of celebrating them, I'm going to feature some of their work here at the end of the video. And if you as a viewer like our channel would like to support us and would like to have your work featured, please consider joining us over on Patreon. All the stuff for that's down below, but let's focus on these folks for a bit. So magic of editing. So here we have, you can see the very beautiful artwork of Joe Ledger. This is one of the wood and resin hearts from our craft-along kits, and I really love the way that she did the wire wrapped frame on it. It's just lovely. Then here we have some of the work of Ashley, or Smash Glass. Links for all of their stores and everything will be down in the video description, listed in the order of presentation. But Ashley has so many beautiful pieces, I could not pick just one, even though typically I'm like, oh, just send me one picture. But y'all, go check them out, seriously. This one here is by our friend Rebel, or you can find them at likingquirky.com, and I absolutely love this piece. It is gorgeous, like melts my heart. And then this one here is by our friend Alex with Penguin's Emporium, and this was following along with this tutorial, which was one of our patron preview perks, is that you're able to see the tutorials before anybody else. Now Alex was able to pull this off without any of the elements that came in the craft along kit that we haven't even mailed out yet, actually. And I think Alex did a fantastic job, so hats off to these talented artisans. And I really look forward to seeing what else they come up with, because I mean, I've said it before, but I'll say it a million times and it won't be enough. Y'all are so inspiring with just your vision of things, and the way that you bring that vision into reality keeps making me want to up my game and try new things, and you know, just share it with you guys and see your work more too. So thank you guys for just helping us make this what this is today. Like not related, but we've been looking back over some of our work. We've been on YouTube teaching tutorials and stuff for 5 years now, and so many of y'all have been here since the beginning, and who'd have thought that we'd be where we are now? Like, not just Randy and I and with our YouTube and channel, but y'all have grown so much, and I'm honored to be a part of that. So thank you guys for everything, and I will see y'all in our next video. And until then, oh yeah, like, share, subscribe, all that other crap. Yeah, links to social media and stuff are down below. Happy crafting, you guys. Bye.